In the age of constant surveillance, where our phones track our every move and satellites watch us from above, the idea of something truly vanishing seems impossible. Especially something as large as a Boeing 777, carrying 239 souls. But on March 8, 2014, the impossible happened. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 was on a routine red-eye from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. 38 minutes into the flight, it reached cruising altitude. The captain made his final, now chilling radio call. "Good night, Malaysian 370. And then, silence. The plane's transponder, the device that communicates its identity and position, went dark. On civilian radar, the plane simply ceased to exist. What followed was the largest, most expensive search in aviation history. A search that involved dozens of countries, scouring millions of square miles of ocean. But they found nothing. Not a seat cushion, not a life vest, not a single piece of wreckage. It was as if a 200-foot-long airliner had been plucked from the sky. 10 years later, it remains aviation's greatest unsolved mystery. But the story didn't end with the failed search, because a series of digital ghosts and faint whispers left by the plane have allowed us to piece together a terrifying timeline of its final hours. This is the story of what we really know about the ghost plane, MH370. The key to understanding MH370 isn't in what we saw, but in what we didn't see, and the faint electronic breadcrumbs the plane left behind. While civilian radar lost the plane, military radar did not. For the next hour, military controllers in Malaysia tracked an unidentified aircraft flying erratically. It wasn't a glitch, it was MH370, flying dark, deliberately veering off course, crossing back over Malaysia, and heading out into the vast, empty expanse of the Indian Ocean. This was not an accident. This was a deliberate act. Pause. The immediate question was, who was in control? Suspicion quickly fell on the experienced 53-year-old captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah. He was a veteran pilot, respected by his peers. But an FBI investigation into his home flight simulator revealed something chilling. He had run a simulation of a flight path that ended in the deep southern Indian Ocean, eerily similar to the one MH370 is believed to have taken. The leading theory, supported by most aviation experts, is a terrible one. A deliberate act of mass murder-suicide by the pilot. Pause. For hours, the world thought the plane was gone, but it wasn't. It was still talking, in a way. A British satellite company, Inmarsat, discovered that even with its main communications offline, the plane's satellite data unit automatically responded to hourly pings from their satellite over the Indian Ocean. These pings didn't give a location, but they told a crucial story. By analyzing the time it took for the pings to travel and the Doppler effect, Inmarsat engineers could calculate the plane's distance from the satellite at each ping. This created a series of massive arcs of possible locations. The plane had to be somewhere along these lines. By calculating the plane's fuel load, they determined it had likely flown for another 6 hours after disappearing, finally crashing into the remote southern Indian Ocean when it ran out of fuel. These pings are the only reason we know where to look. Pause. Armed with the Inmarsat data, the search moved to one of the most remote places on Earth, the southern Indian Ocean, an area known for its brutal weather and depths of over 4,000 meters. For years, the search continued. Advanced sonar scanned the seabed, creating detailed maps of a world never seen before. They found shipwrecks, underwater volcanoes, but no sign of MH370. The official search was finally called off in 2017, having found nothing. The designated search area, it seemed, was wrong. But then, pieces of the plane began to appear. A year after the disappearance, a piece of a wing, a flaperon, washed ashore on Réunion Island, thousands of kilometers away. Over the next few years, more than 20 pieces confirmed to be from, or highly likely to be from MH370 were found along the coasts of Africa. The plane had indeed crashed into the Indian Ocean. But where? The discovery of the debris sparked a new kind of investigation. Oceanographers used sophisticated computer models to simulate how the pieces would have drifted. By tracking the currents backwards in time, they could narrow down a new, much more precise search area, just north of the original one. This new location, supported by the science of debris drift, remains the most promising place to find the wreckage. Pause. The pilot suicide theory remains the most likely. But in the absence of a wreckage, other theories have flourished, and some are not as crazy as they sound. One theory suggests a cyber-hijacking. Could someone have remotely taken control of the plane's systems? While Boeing insists this is impossible, some cybersecurity experts argue that vulnerabilities could exist. This theory points to the valuable cargo the plane was carrying, including a team of electronics engineers. Another theory is a ghost flight. A fire or rapid decompression could have incapacitated the crew and passengers, leaving the plane to fly on autopilot for hours until it ran out of fuel. This would explain the long flight, but not the deliberate turn back over Malaysia, unless the turn was an attempt by a dying pilot to return to the nearest airport before succumbing to hypoxia. Pause. For years, the case went cold, but recently, new science has offered a tantalizing clue. Aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey has been using a revolutionary technology called WSPR, a global network of amateur radio signals. He argues that a plane as large as a 777 would have disturbed these signals as it flew through them. By analyzing a decade of archived data, he has pinpointed a potential flight path and a crash site that aligns perfectly with the debris drift analysis. This new data is so compelling that the private exploration company Ocean Infinity, which conducted a previous search, has proposed a new, massive, no-find, no-fee search of this area. There is a very real possibility that in the next year or two, the final resting place of MH370 will be found. Pause. The disappearance of MH370 was a wake-up call for the entire aviation industry. It exposed critical gaps in our global tracking systems. In response, new standards have been implemented. Planes are now required to report their position more frequently, and new aircraft are being equipped with emergency locator transmitters that can't be easily disabled. Pause. But beyond the technology and the theories, we must remember the 239 people on board. Fathers, mothers, children, artists, engineers, whose stories ended in an unknown corner of the world. For their families, this is not a mystery. It is a wound that has never closed. The search for MH370 is more than a technical challenge. It's a promise to those families that their loved ones will not be forgotten. Pause. The ocean is vast, and its secrets are deep, but the pursuit of truth, fueled by science and a refusal to give up, is relentless. The ghost plane is still out there, waiting, and one day soon, it may finally be ready to tell its story.